Hello, everyone. Welcome to another awesome day of FileMaker training. I'm Richard Carlton at fmtraining.tv, where we do great FileMaker training every day at 1 o'clock at this time slot. Every day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, except weekends. Some of you always show up on Saturday, Sunday. You're like, where's Richard, right? So Monday through Friday, business time. You go to fmtraining.tv. You can hit the live tab right here. You can see a real FileMaker database. We eat our own dog food here, right? This is a FileMaker database that's driving the data API, DAPI, and it's feeding us a live customized web page. So once again, you can see upcoming schedule today is the Moyers will be here, Heidi, Porter, Chris, Moyer. And then Monday, we have Calvin Moseman doing add-ons. Apparently is Shortcut Tuesday. I had forgotten about this. We'll have to figure out what we're going to do with that. Richard Miles will be here, probably Jacob Taylor, some other people with shortcuts. There's always shortcuts. We always ask the viewers to come in with shortcuts because there's always little things that we forget about. No one person knows all the little shortcuts in the FileMaker platform. And then Joe Martin, 360 Works, will be Wednesday talking about Zulu. Zulu is the one method for integrating your calendar with outside online services, right? So you could roll your own API. I've done that before, but it's faster and easier in a lot of ways if you can do it through Zulu, which is a 360 product. And then Thursday, Jacob Taylor. Yesterday was a really great day. It went long, 90 minutes. We're going to book out this day right here, Thursday, is a Windows install because of all the things that go on. Plan on a 2-hour session. Just bring a sandwich, bring a snack, bring something, whatever you need to do to get through that. And then Friday is actually kind of a marginal controversial topic. It's a competitive analysis of FileMaker and other products in the low-code space. I want to welcome Chris Moyer and Heidi Porter from the Moyer Group. They are here. They're smiling. They're welcome. Hi. And you have to unmute yourself so we can hear you.
Hi there.
How are you doing?
Good. We are good. So I've been badgering the Moyers to show up for a while. They actually showed up on Monday and educated me that zombies were still a thing. I had no idea they were still a thing. So I got educated on Monday about that. And so they are here to talk about opses or something. I'm not entirely clear on it. It's like an official title for something that a lot of us kind of do, but I think it's very interesting. And so they're here this Friday, they're here next Friday. And then maybe in the future, if they have anything exciting they want to share with us, they can come back. Open invitation anytime. So what are we doing today, and why do I care?
So I think you're asking what's DevOps, right?
Yeah. Why are you here, and why do I care?
I'm going to do Carlston speak. So from the textbook definition, and we can share the WikiOps, DevOps is a set of practices that combines software development, IT operations, and it aims to shorten the software development cycle.
Can you show your screen? Show your screen real quick while you're talking.
Yeah, I'm going to share my screen. And then you won't have to look at us. I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to get rid of your screen.
You two are beautiful. But yeah,
I'm showing you that I know how to do DevOps
there's Richard.
Yeah.
Oh, there it is right there. So DevOps. So what is Dev? So we're talking about
there
DevOps.
There you go. You can read it.
So what is this again? What is this?
It's a set of practices. So another definition for DevOps is you're trying to reduce the chaos that comes with deploying new features, right? Or reduce the dysfunction between development and IT operations. So there's no consensus on definition, but in general, it's about getting new software features out there that your clients and their clients and their customers can use quickly with high quality, very securely, and with minimal disruption and maximal reliability. So, and then one of the questions you asked me was, well, DevOps sounds like, it's for Tesla and Elon, you got to have a lot of money to.
Yeah, it seems like it's a big company thing, right? So why do we care? A lot of people here are small business. I know that Amy, Sheely, Jake, and Megan all work at a small insurance company. Why would they care?
Well, anybody who wants to deploy new features, they should care, right? Because you want to have a repeatable, consistent process. And, as a small business or medium business, maybe you can do things faster than those big, heavy Clydesdale big businesses. And Chris had an example for you pointed
I don't
towards you.
remember my example. Oh, yeah.
FM start.
So, right, you have FM starting point, right?
Yeah.
True or false?
that is my
And
CRM.
do you have some people in the wild using FM starting point that you work with?
Yep.
And so if you come out with a new version of FM starting point that has some whizzy new feature and you want to push that out to those people who have it, how do you do that?
I identify them on a mailing list and I alert them that we have a new update coming, and I might want them to test something in advance, for example. Right.
So that's part of your so that's DevOps. You're doing DevOps whether you are formal about it or not. The way you deploy it is your process. And so the goal is to not cause chaos, have it be high quality, don't disrupt the users, have security, et cetera, et cetera. But, anybody out there, anyone listening who is pushing new features to a FileMaker database is doing DevOps. And so the question is, can that process be improved? Is there a way you can apply a checklist to it and say, make sure I do step 1, 2, 3, and 4, because if I miss one, it's going to cause chaos. Did I forget to reset serial numbers or something like that if I'm loading data? There's even AppOps. I've been seeing Salesforce ads where they're just talking about doing imports into Salesforce as being AppOps. So there's a whole bunch of different flavors of something ops.
Yeah, and so that's one other thing, if I can share my screen again, wanted to mention is, if you Google like DevOps, you'll see there's a million words: DevOps, SecOps, DevSecOps, CloudOps, ServerOps.
Yeah, show your screen.
Yeah, because you like the visuals. And the other thing about this is that, this is not to get into the head-to-head talk, but, this isn't any big presentation, but, all these words, I just started writing down all the words I saw that had ops. And it's really about, smoother and secure deployment of features and, maximum reliability, minimum disruption. And there's a guy out there that now is talking about no ops, that, shooting for the moon. What you're really shooting for is, you develop your code, you think about all these things right here when you're developing your code, how it affects all these areas, and then you just go. It's all automated. There's no ops. So dev no ops is a thing that people think we should aspire to. Now, is it realistic? Probably not. But I do think this is one of FileMaker's key differentiators, is how fast you can get new features out there.
Well, yeah, there's no question it's fast on development. But so you're saying no ops is like you don't have to consider this stuff? It's just automatic, or?
It's completely automated,
Yeah, that is, you can go Google no ops. It's kind of a relatively...
Well, with FileMaker, you still have to consider security. Deployment would be pretty easy, I think. So to deployment, whatever you call it, deploy ops or launch ops or...
That's part of DevOps.
Okay, yeah.
So we were watching, we were on a meetup a week or two ago, and the guy, I can't think of his name now, Rob
Russell.
Rob Russell, yes, of Athenaeum.
Yeah.
So he's got, a vertical market solution. He's an SBA, and I think a lot of SBAs are in this situation where if he pushes out a new version, he's got 20 servers to touch. And so he could do it manually and have a checklist and say, make sure you do this, make sure you do this. But, he's an old DOS and Windows guy from way back in the day. And so he wrote a bunch of batch files and turned them into commandlets. And so he has the thing where it saves your clone, brings his new feature in, imports all the data. He's running the migration tool in an automated fashion. And I think he said he provisioned 20 servers in half an hour, which is amazing. If you think about it, if you had to do that manually, that would take you a lot longer than that.
It sounds like the deploy product from 360 works, right? So he kind of wrote his own version of the deploy product. Is that what I'm gathering kind of from that conversation?
He did it in batch files, but that's how he rolls, because that's what
so he rolled his own, which is fine. For me, I wouldn't write that. I would just go and hire Jesse or buy the product. And when it didn't work or something was buggy, I would just call Jesse on the phone and yell at him.
Yeah.
So, which works actually. Trust me, things get fixed doing that. David Angel says DevOps let integrate different developments into a single solution without taking care of the integration.
Right, and so that's another point because I noticed on FM Starting Point you've got integration with QuickBooks, for example. So if you have a feature that relies on a new version of a plugin, you're going to have to push that plugin too and verify that it works.
Yes. Yep.
Configuration settings, maybe you have a different API endpoint you're talking to. So it's not just the FileMaker code; it's all the stuff that works in tandem to make the whole thing work.
So go ahead, please.
So I had kind of an analogy because Chris was going to talk a little bit about, there's different type of DevOps in FileMaker depending on, what your customer has budget for, what the size is, how many developers you have, what kind of feature it is, whether you're an SBA. So it's, the DevOps is customizable. And one analogy I had was we have kind of a travel ops. So when we have checklists. So when we go on a trip, it could be weekend, it could be longer, it could be international, it could be domestic. We have checklists of what to bring. We have week before items, day before items, day of items. Some of these are IT oriented, like check your backups, which attachments adapters do we need for our computers? But what happens then is it's a very automatic process to get ready and deploy out to a new trip, wherever we're going to a client or a conference or whatever. And it's smooth. There's less hiccups. There's less exhaustion. There's less disruption. And we've honed it over the years, to make sure we have everything we need and everything is done. And, the animals also figure into that too, right? Because they have their little, and then also who you're if you talk about integration, who you're interfacing with when you get there. Have you done the communications? Is everything set? And so, I view all these, I'll call them wildcard or DevOps, as very similar. It's basically having processes to deploy or monitor, make sure everything's working currently in the future. So that everything operates smoothly for the business as you deploy new features and as you keep running.
Yep, that's perfect. I like the fact that you have a travel checklist. That's very similar. When I fly, it's always checklist on the knee board to make sure that we don't have a problem with the aircraft, right? So there you go. Same.
Yeah, and it's also in helicopter flying you have that too. It's also time based, right? Because certain things get done a few days earlier.
Before there's a sequence to it. Yeah, there's actually a pre climb in checklist, and then there's after you climb in and start the engine checklist, right? So anyway, yeah.
And you can customize it based on how far you're going, right? In your helicopter, that's what I say, like customize it based on 2 days, 7 days, international, where you're going.
Yeah. That's a good one. So if people have questions along the way, let us know. So what are the tips you have for other people? I mean, you have a travel ops. That's a good one. What are the tips you have for people to benefit them? What would be your suggestions?
So there's just an example yesterday. I think one of the crypto Bitcoin exchanges accidentally pushed a code release where instead of paying people out in dollars, they were paying them out in Bitcoin. So someone asked for $700 and he got 700 Bitcoins. And so $10 million.
Whoa. How come I didn't get in on that action? I did not hear about that. Jacob Taylor, you hear about this? Did they go bankrupt within about 38 seconds, or what happened?
They're trying to claw the coins back. But the point is, there are different contexts you can operate in. So if this is a pre-planned push to production, then great, you can be methodical about it. But if you all of a sudden discovered somebody made a $10 million mistake, most of that checklist is out the window. You are working on the live system, and you are trying to fix it as soon as humanly possible.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and so the other thing is people don't talk about this much, but having a rollback procedures, right? And I guess I don't want to get into when you might have to roll back to a previous release of FileMaker or an Apple OS or anything like that, but you should have a process for rolling back if there's an issue.
Yeah, we talked about that yesterday with customers who do major FileMaker server updates, and they need to snapshot and have a rollback process. And if they don't know how to do that, then I tell them that they need a second server, a new server, and then they can recycle the previous piece of hardware out, or it's a virtual server and they can destruct it after they're done. TK suggests that we have a new ops called WifeOps, which is a checklist for staying out of trouble with the wife, I would assume, right, TK? Yes? Chris, do you have any tips for that?
I have no tips for that.
Yeah. So another point though is, you got into the Claris releases and everything is, now that Claris is continuous, delivery, every FileMaker shop needs to have, and client needs to have a process, right? To, if you want to use the new features to, update everybody to the new server and the new clients, etc. So that's all a process too, right? As well as any new plugin updates.
Well, and that brings up an important point, and I think that we should just take a moment here to bring everyone up to speed here on this. So yesterday I got this call from my sales guy, and he goes, "Hey, where's FileMaker 20?" And I'm like, I'm like, okay. He goes, "Well, people want to know where FileMaker 20 is, so that because they don't want to buy the new whatever if they can. They're still in this mindset, right? It's a major release every May, the number changes and all this sort of stuff. And even though we've been talking about it, so I'm going to say this collectively, everyone here, Jake, Kyle, Gudidi, Fox, Jack, Elzo, everyone here, Tawa, and Invincible Man, et cetera, even though we've been talking about the fact that Claris has changed to this model, I sent him a note yesterday saying, hey, it just occurred to me that none of our customers have been paying attention, even though we've been talking about this, right? And so I want to alert everyone that you're going to have to go to your, Carol from Oakland, welcome. You're going to have to go to your customers, whoever those are. If they have an expectation that they will get a major number release, we anticipate, I'm going to say this way, I anticipate, you could take it to the bank, that Richard's right about this. I anticipate that there will not be a major number release. Claris is in this mode where it's 19.1, 19.2. The next one will be 19.3. We do expect a 19.3 because they've been testing it and they haven't been very secret about it. There's a lot of good stuff in there. That being said, I don't anticipate a 20. And then, of course, then my sales guy goes, well, where's all the new features? Because why would someone buy it if they don't have new features? I said, listen, there's been new features for the last year. Every time there's a 19.1, 19.2, there's new features in each one. Yeah. Well, where do I find out about those? And I'm like, where's the README document, right? So we're going to make a video about this, obviously, to help the people who haven't been paying attention. But obviously, the people who are here in this broadcast, quite a few of you, you do pay attention, but I'm alerting you that even though we've been talking about it and it's old news to us, this is going to be a complete earth-shattering experience for people over the next, say, 14 days or 4 weeks or 3 or 4 weeks, because they're all going, where's 20? Where's 20? Where's 20? Where's 20? Where's 20, 20, 20, 20? And I'm seriously. And so while we in our little echo chamber know what's going on, ain't no one else paying attention. And now they're asking for it, and they literally their submarine is just surfaced. Little periscope boop, pops up, and they're like, "Where's 20?" And literally we have to start the conversation from scratch. So we're going to shoot a video on this, but I want to alert everyone here. This came up, and I went to Claris, and I don't think they understood what I was trying to tell them. And I'm like, yeah, we're going to have this conversation because what they do is they think, well, if there's no 20. Then I must have got gypped. It's like the old kidding when you're in kindergarten. You gypped me out of my marbles. You basically a fancy way of saying you screwed me out of my marbles. So where's their new features? You gypped me out of my new features, and we have to go back and articulate that. So everyone here should be prepared for that. Just so you know, if it hasn't hit you, it will. And for those of you who don't know about this, they're not doing major release. They're doing major releases as short as 3 weeks, but it's mostly between 3 weeks and 3 months. You will see updates as short as 3 weeks when there's like a critical bug they have to get fixed. We saw that happen not too long ago, middle of this year. But most time, so do you guys have any comment or feedback about that in terms of ops? I mean, how do we, the world of FileMaker now is this revolving thing, right? So
they are, under the Agile methodology now, right? And so the difference, so Agile is about speed and rapid development. So we're getting more continuous releases. And DevOps isn't really about Agile or waterfall. You can, it's really about minimal disruption, maximal reliability. It doesn't care, how fast you release. You want to release faster to get new features to people, but it's not dependent on one methodology. So what else do you have to say about that?
Well, I think it's tricky because, FileMaker files have the ability to specify a minimum version, but to my knowledge, they're always, full versions. So you can say this has to be minimum 18 or minimum 19. I don't think you can do minimum 19.3, for example.
You can. That's a new thing. They just added that. They added that. I saw that. Someone
Well,
did a
there you
video
go.
on that.
So now if you're using a new technology in 19.3, you can say this is the minimum required so that a user who hasn't upgraded their copy of FileMaker isn't going to get button hooked by some feature that doesn't work.
Yeah, let me see if I can pop something open here. No, I got to find a file here. It's in here. Where'd it go? I need something that works. I lost all my sample files. What happens when you clean up your desktop? All right, so here's a sample file here. Cropping image.
You need a sample file ops.
Yep, there we go. There we go. Sample file. So file. It's under file info, and they changed it so you could have decimals in the thingy. Minimum file version. See the decimal right here? I don't know if it's supporting the decimal now. It wasn't doing that before. For those of you guys can see this. So this was typically a whole number. Now you can say it's 19.1 or 2 or whatever it's going to be. If you go to something like, let's just try 19.5, right? Just try that and see what happens. It'll probably freak out. Let's say okay. See, there's the message. It only supports the 19.2. So it's not. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is actually a really good example of the development, of this release had to put in this to allow the operations, to allow, the operations to be smoothly. And that's one of the things, like people, when this DevOps culture came out, and I know about the process and the definitions here, but, DevOps is going to kill the developer because, they can't just write their code and just, be in the corner coding. They got to think about security and how this is going to be deployed and how this is going to be versioned and stuff like that. But it hasn't killed the developer.
So Christian Schmidt, Monkey Bread said, isn't that now a field to put in like version 19.2? If you put in 19.2 and open 19.1, you keep 19.2? Yeah, I just always know that was the minimum. It won't open it, right? Unless you have that, right? Does that make sense? So I just know that they started supporting decimals, Christian. It was always whole numbers, and now we're into decimals, right? I mean, at the end of the day, they're still building features and rolling them out, but more consistently, right? Oregon Dean says, DevOps sounds like increased awareness by developers. Let me go over here to Discord, wherever it went. It says, Oregon Dean, it sounds like increased awareness developers. How do IT folks perceive this encroachment? Are we friend or foe? Is the question.
No, I mean, that's part of the goal, is to work hand in glove with IT so that you don't have problems. If you need a specific server patch applied so that the server's at a certain update, that should be part of the process to make sure you guys are in sync.
Yeah, I found some comics of like what walls of, developer versus IT, big wall here, and that the goal is to not have that wall, right? You're all working together.
Yeah, Christian Schmidt went back and edited. If you put in 19.2 and then open 19.1, you can keep 19.2. I haven't played with that. I just know that, like I said, they put the decimals in there. It was a new thing. Someone had popped that up into a video somewhere, a little FYI about that. I was like, one of those little widget things that goes in there. Invincible Man says desktop file ops, right? Yeah, I mean, if that's how you're managing FileMakers all on your desktop, then you have to figure that out. But that's the power of FileMaker, is really about sharing the solution, sharing it with the team, right? And then how do you roll that out without disrupting everyone's life, right?
Yeah, and there are hundreds of shades of gray here. You could be pretty structured about it and have a dev server and a test server and then a production server, and it have very discrete steps where you move it from step to step and then push it live. But you can also have it, to do that and have these multiple migrations of features across 3 different servers, takes time. So the velocity of, features per hour or something like that is slower than if you work on a live system. So there's 100 decisions you have to make. Does it make sense to work on a live system? If I'm just adding a report, I'm not changing any schema, that's pretty safe. If I have to, touch field definitions and it's a live table, I'm going to lock somebody up. So that's a terrible idea. So there are all those sort of considerations you have to take into account when you're working on a live system as to whether or not that's even a good idea or not, if you have any chance of disrupting a bunch of people's work, don't do it.
Or you could do the Richard calculus, like, I just have to add one field definition, and if they do it really quick, maybe
I'm going to sneak it in with a field
no one
picker.
will notice it real quick, right? So, which is frankly a lot of logic. Like, should I wait till after hours to make? So let me ask this question, Chris. I mean, I'm going to kind of pivot here a little bit, but I mean, we have time here, unless you have a very specific agenda where you want to go. But the question is, how do you decide when you're going to do an offline or an alternate version versus just do it in the live file? What is your decision making? What are the areas that go into it for you? Besides,
I have a whole process flow graph to do that. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, are we touching schema? Yes or no? If we are touching schema, is it something actively in use? Like if you're adding a brand new module, brand new table, new fields in it and stuff like that, and nobody's on it right now, you can actually go in and do that. You know, if you crash while you're modifying schema, then you're going to corrupt the file most likely. But, you know, and there's all those other considerations. Don't work over a database over a wide area network. Make sure you're local. If if your wide area network connection falls down, you just lose the connection to your local session as opposed to losing connection to the managed database. So all of those sorts of considerations. But if you can stay away from live schema, you will get faster, more features per hour, I guess is the way to frame it. Adding brand new scripts as opposed to working on scripts that, have a defined process embedded in them and people are using. So all those sort of considerations, and all boils down to, am I going to disrupt the user, yes or no? And if the answer is no, go for it. You'll and especially if you have a client who is not great, and client could even apply to in-house developers whose clients are the users. Clients are often not great at being very specific with what the requirements are. And so you have to approach a new feature with sort of a sculpting process, like, well, here's something, what do you think? And like, that's great, but I also want that. And so if you're going to have a whole bunch of passes at it, if you do this very formal, dev test live kind of thing, that takes a lot longer and it's more laborious. And so if you can work with live data, they might have a specific use case right in front of us, like I need this to apply to this record. It may take some work to get that into the test environment if it's a brand new record or something like that. So working live is often the most efficient way to go. And so to the extent that you can do that safely, that's certainly a preference.
Well, and then there's also the one-off of you're in the live system, but you're doing it off hours. And we do that a lot just when it makes sense. Again, it all depends on the situation. But, if it's certain things, we'll just do it off hours, and the client just wants us to put them in the live system, so it all works.
Yeah. No, I like that quite a bit. I think it's always because I deal with customers that, and I'm not picking on anyone here. I'm not actively coding anyone for any active projects right now. But and there's comments popping in over here. I will I bring myself in here, but then I have to cover over someone. But yes, the trick is I prefer live because deployment has been such a weakness of the FileMaker platform for so long. It only now does not totally suck. I think with the 360 deploy, or you mentioned the gentleman who did his own scripts, who was able to do his own rollouts pretty easily, but it was so damn painful. And now it's actually almost kind of easy to use the deploy tool to roll out your solutions. Yeah, so it's like, okay, now really offline's an option. But we had customers who were so horrible about, like, let's going to do a dev, and then we're going to test it. Customer says, yeah, we tested it. They didn't test shit, okay? And so the only way they test it was then they roll out to their live users, and they're out using it, and then they're screaming across the floor of the company because something is blown up and they can't see something. And then they're squealing, and the manager squeal, then your phone starts to vibrate on your desk, like, and you get here was the red phone. Once again, we all wondered about the red phones, the bat phone. Like, give me the president, we have a problem right now, right? I was going to label this one Brad. So in the event of a national emergency, I can just call the Brad, right? We call it the Brad. Brad, we have a bug in the product. Would you like to help us out, right? So, but yeah, it becomes a very serious problem. And so sometimes doing it live with the targeted person and then watching them squeal in real time, but it's kind of, that they're testing it right there in front of your face, right? So there's something to be said for that. it's a hard thing to do because it's more risky because if you have a lot of people, if you're in a new section, you got a couple people testing it. Like I said, Chris said, it's a low risk operation, right? But if it's like in the meat of the core thing, man, damn. Oregon Dean has a comment here. I wanted to throw this up. He's our cardiac surgeon, I think. It seems to me that FileMaker developers always had increased DevOps awareness because of the tight integration and flexibility of the front and back end of FileMaker. In fact, I would argue that IT often does not have much awareness on how broad the work of FileMaker developer is. Yeah, I think most IT folks are grossly unprepared for their average FileMaker developer to walk through the door. I think it caused them to be nervous. You know, why aren't we using Microsoft? Why aren't we using this? Why am I not more involved? I see more IT friction than I see IT grease. I mean,
yeah, there's some antagonism there.
Yeah, and I think that's situational of like the outsourced IT. I don't think care as much. The in-source IT care more. Is that your experience or?
Yeah. No, that's a good question. Outsourced IT is contracted to do their job and get along. If you have an internal person, we ran this the other day, and I'm pretty sure they're not here, but we had a meeting with I told the story. We had we got this going. With the CEO got made CEO by the owners of the company because they had this hugely successful system, and then the IT guys promptly went off and bought drives that were too small for the server, which promptly led to them not running all the backups they should have. Then they had a problem, and then they would not restore from the backup. So I literally sent an email to the CEO saying, by the way, your IT guys are going to get you fired. And it's not happened yet, but you're on the edge of a corrupted file, and bad juju is going to happen, and your company is going to be non-functional. This is your official warning that it's coming. And he cracked down on the IT guys nicely, but cracked down on them, and then they promptly turned around and did it again behind his back, where they restored without a backup, and they knew better. So you get some belligerent stuff going on sometimes, and if there's any IT people here, they're just IT people, which I would doubt. Try not to. Yeah, I mean, and when we say restore, we always restore from a backup. We're not making it up, right? I mean, I don't know what to tell you, Chris. It's just, but you run into this. Sometimes it's belligerent. Sometimes it's a lack of knowledge. Sometimes you educate people and they're like totally on board, right? Totally on board with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's all situational.
Richard, I wanted to circle back to a point you just made, and that is that more often than not, FileMaker development is a collaborative act along with the subject matter expert who asked for the feature.
Yes.
And if they don't, they might ask you for something, and you say, I built it, can you have a look at it? And you get crickets chirping back at you. You can't have a successful deployment if you're not getting cooperation, or if the people are too busy, or, any number of things like that. So that's sort of an obstacle to have that function smoothly, unless you get, an ironclad agreement at the outset that this is exactly what we wanted to do, just make it happen, and I don't even need to look at it anymore, which I think is a terrible idea, because there are always, extenuating circumstances. But, that's the problem. I noticed David's question here about if does DevOps let you develop and test when it's ready?
That's DevTestOps.
Yeah.
I mean, there's two things about DevOps, right? One, it's about checklist and process, time-based process, and the other is about collaboration. And actually, Agile, you're supposed to be developing and testing as peers. And then DevOps, there's a thing called DevTestOps, where you're breaking down the silo of development and testing, So yes, it can. It's all about collaborating, which is what Richard was talking about. Right? Yeah.
So Moki says, what are we talking about today? DevOps. I think it's more of a awareness. I don't know if someone has never had, basically we're putting a label on something that most of us have never had a label on before.
Right.
It's like getting along in the same. You have a bunch of five-year-olds getting along in the same. Chris has got a kid. I don't know when your kid was like 5, but you put them in the sandbox with other kids. Don't throw sand at the other kids, right? Play nice in the sandbox. So if we're getting along as human individuals, being nice to people, getting along in the IT sandbox, the question is this is the rules that you kind of grew up with should be as an adult, right? So DevOps is a terminology for something most of us kind of know, but we've never really formalized in our life.
It is the process you use to deploy new features so that you have high quality. And so, obviously,
and you don't disrupt IT or the business.
That requires the cooperation of the feature specifier. That requires the cooperation of IT. And you yourself need to have good practices so you don't bring the system down.
Tawa on YouTube says, are there DevOps utilities available for FileMaker? Well, I mean, basically, it's about checklists, right? I mean, people are coming to this brand new. What would you say to them, Chris, on that? Right?
Well, 360 Deploy is a DevOps tool, right?
Yeah, that's part of the DevOps tool chain. So is
Auto and
Docker can be.
Docker can be one more thing is using that. Once we get FileMaker on Ubuntu, you could use Ansible as a DevOps tool.
Ansible?
Yes. One of the best DevOps tools. None of these are FileMaker related, but I think Steve was using Jenkins. I've used Jenkins in a past life. Any of the cloud infrastructures, are we still on?
Yeah, you're on. I hear you. I hear you. Something is spinning over. I'm not sure what's spinning over here, but that's,
all right.
You're good.
Okay, get rid of that. Anyways, any of the, Azure and AWS and Google Cloud and whatever other clouds are out there. Yeah, they all, have, you can use these tools on those platforms.
Interesting. Yeah. So I am way outside my comfort zone of this conversation. I mean, deploy is about as opsy as I get with stuff, but having a checklist and a plan. But I mean, a lot of it, I think, gets back. Well, initially you have to have someone who wants to play nice in the sandbox, and you go from there. I mean, DevOps is a set of practices intended to reduce the time between committing a change to a system and the change being placed in normal production. That's really good.
But in FileMaker, you can do that like that, right?
Well, you can do it instantly, or you can,
So
and it's back to this question.
Head to head.
It's basically FileMaker's fantastic at this.
Yeah.
So, Chris, you said something a little bit ago. So you said don't make your schema changes over the WAN, right? So you want to dive into your opinion on that a little bit, because a lot of times that's the only way you can make the change, right? So
I mean, we do a lot of remote development, and our ideal is always to remote into a client machine on the same LAN. So we're not over the we're over the WAN to the client LAN, and then from the LAN we connect to the server over the LAN. And it's super unusual for the LAN to go down, but it's not at all unusual to have some sort of wobble in the WAN. And so if I drop off, my client session is still up and running. I haven't lost anything. I can just reconnect. There are different scenarios where this is a bigger or smaller problem. Like, we used to do a lot of work in Barbados, and the internet connectivity to the island could be iffy sometimes. At the end of the day or the beginning of the day, when everyone was jumping onto email, you could very easily have an interruption in service, and so we would just fall right off the client. And so we learned very quickly to stay off of live sessions and do not get in there remotely. Just get onto a client on the network.
Wow. Yeah, that's very interesting. Yeah, well, the FileMaker platform used to be very allergic to making changes and having the clients disconnect, and you could corrupt files. I haven't seen that too much lately in terms of it being in a defined field session or something, and then you crash and then it destroys the file, right? Generally
we haven't seen that either.
I understand. I just don't want people to freak out that it's because a lot of what we do is because we've been around so long. Chris might look like a baby puppy in the world of FileMaker, but he's talking here because he's got similar years of experience that I do, and it's been, and sometimes at the end of a knife point. And the point is, when you get your shot off by something that FileMaker's done, you tend to remember that forever, right? So it's very, very, very good conversation to have about understanding, not damaging the file, not corrupting the file, but at the same time, I have a pretty high degree in confidence that the FileMaker server, or if you're using Cloud 2, will not trash the file if you get disconnected. It will mean you lose all your changes and edits, though, right? So if you're like doing a bunch of schema stuff, and you're not frequently going to commit it and save it and then back in, and you're doing all these changes and you drop off, it's all gone. So just keep that in mind. But yeah, the question comes up from people, brand new people, about Should I build on the live file? Should I build on a non-live file? If you're brand new to the FileMaker platform, just build on the live file, please. It'll make your life much easier. You get more success with that. Down the road, when you start doing bigger, more complicated systems, and you run the risk of having, if you have 20 or 30 people or more logged into a live file and they're really beating on it. But if you have 20 or 30 people logged on and they just like do finds and they reference data periodically, you could probably make the changes live in there and they'd never know you were there, right? That's where you don't want to. It's like you're like trying to do you can't make a field definition because someone's editing and they got a record locked, right? So you can't change a field definition in schema or add a field or delete a field or change a definition if someone's actually editing a record in that table at that time, right? So you'll get this mess.
Yeah.
Yeah, I ran into this the other day because I was working on it, and my sales guy was in editing a field, and then he went off for a 4-hour lunch, right? Typical sales guy, right? And so I'm like, damn, like get out. Then I have to call my server guy. Hey, would you kindly disconnect the sales guy out of my system? So anyway, Mr. Moyer.
So one thing I wanted to mention, just because I think this topic of working on live files that a bunch of people are logged into is a bigger topic. We have a meetup. What's the next?
June 15th. June 15th. Yes.
June 15th. So our FileMaker user group is called the Ann Arbor FileMaker user group. You can find it on Meetup. And the topic I'm presenting on I'm calling it open heart surgery, which is all the do's and don'ts of working on live files.
Oh, we should definitely hijack
yeah.
that. Yeah. So.
And that sounds more serious than it really is. Like working on a live file is not like open heart surgery. Like,
it can be.
It can be, but it's not.
Ask that Bitcoin exchange if
yeah.
they were
yeah. I mean, that was pretty wild if they started shipping currency out as Bitcoin. That's.
Yeah.
I mean, with the price of Bitcoin right now, you could almost instantly go out of business like that. You could.
Yeah. Multi-million-dollar mistake. How'd you like to be that developer? You did what?
Yeah, the biggest mistake I ever made was $6.9 million, but then it got reversed the next day, so I was very happy about that.
That's good.
That's good. So, you got rolled back, but that's good.
Yeah, well, it was inadvertent. We were back when I was young and stupid, right? So we'd have all these calculations in FileMaker, and we're processing credit cards, and we'd always calculate like the value. It was just the customer's event planning, and it would just be this nightmare of what you're going to actually charge this person to come to this trade show, right? And this was a CIO event or CEO event, and it was like only the top 50 CEOs in the world kind of shit would come to this thing. And so we wrote this calculation and we figured this out, and it got to the end, and I didn't know what to do if it got to the end, because it's a final if. It was before case statements, right? Or case statements. And I'm like if, and it gets to the very end. It's a condition which should never occur. We have no idea what to do with it. So I would just go 69696969. It was my little code to myself as a joke that it should, if that's the price it's going to charge any event, and we would test it, and we never see that. Well, the CEO from American Express gets in there, or his secretary, whoever it was, and fills this thing out to go to this event, and broke the calculation, and it charged him to come to the event $969,000.96, whatever, $6.9 million on his American Express, and it cleared and it settled. And I get this call. I was on my time off. I was with the wife. We were in Lake Tahoe. I'll never forget this. I saw my life flash before my eyes, right? Like, Richard, you charged the American CEO $6.9 million. I said, just cancel it. It hasn't settled yet. It settled last night. We've got $6.9 million. I said, reverse it. Turn it around, send it back. Oh, he's going to know about it. It's going to show up on his statement. I'm like, oh, shit. So, yeah, so we all have those moments in life. I'm sure you have a moment like that in your life. Something dramatically exciting happened. But
yeah. So that's another thing that I have is timing ups, right? So you don't deploy like a change in your invoicing or your settling system right before you go on vacation. You don't deploy critical shipping changes on a weekend before a Monday, because Monday they always have extra shipping, right? If they're getting orders over the weekend in e-commerce. You don't deploy accounting stuff at the end of the month because,
Yeah. So the tip that we came up for that was, okay, so a couple tips for for developers. One is that customer says, you want this built, you want this built, you want this built,
Yeah.
built. And you know that you've got a vacation plan, okay? You do not ship it the day before you go on vacation.
Yes.
One
Yes.
tip. You cannot. Well, the customer wants it. Well, then either you don't go on vacation or they have to wait to ship it after you come back. Oh,
Yep.
I'm going to do it the right before. Okay, everyone's going to hate your guts, including your managers, okay?
Exactly. Exactly. That is not good collaboration.
And then it was also suggested that we do, you don't ever do major rollouts on Fridays and, like you said, Mondays. You always do them like on a Tuesday, and that allows you to put out most of the fires before you get to the weekend. And and if you start on a Friday, then it just cartwheels through the weekend if you have a problem. So Richard's rule, no knows. Yeah, no, my team knows about my Richard's rules, but they're the same rules that, I mean, it's not like they're Richard's rules. It just happens to be I have to be mouthy about them. But if Chris was here, he'd tell you the same rule, right? What other rules do you guys have?
But those rules are part of your DevOps process.
Yeah,
so
those
you have
are
a DevOps process.
Yeah. So you should call this DevOps now.
There you go. We'll call
And
Heidi.
it'll sound more authoritative than Richard's rules.
So, Chris, what are your rules, Chris? I mean, I don't mean you used to have a really huge team, and now it's kind of like a somewhat smaller team. But what rules do you have for your team, Chris?
So there's a bunch of stuff, and Heidi thinks this is totally non-adjacent, but everybody has naming conventions, and so the question is, why do you have naming conventions, right? It makes a whole bunch of things go smoother. Everybody's on the same page. You can pick up other people's work, et cetera, et cetera.
I'm laughing because we've covered naming conventions twice in the last 3 weeks, right? And it's always and Nick Hunter, I swear to God, Nick's not here. Is he here? Checking. Lean design. Nick's not here. So Nick Hunter gets in here and he's like, "What's important?" We have this, and we have it published in PDFs and it's kind of suggestions. We have 2 different documents. One created by me. It's a short one, very short and sweet. And Nick's is like this multi-page thing. And this is what Nick says to everyone because he's an artist, right? And he's very much perfectionist. He goes, "Yeah, thank you." There they go, the 2 links right there. He goes, we want everyone to pick a naming convention that works for you, that helps you understand what you've done previously and helps other people understand what they've done. And so you can choose your own naming convention. And then he says, but if you don't use mine, you're wrong. So all I have is this in the back of my mind, knowing that it's like, we try to be like, pick a convention, pick something, right, for yourself that people make. Because a lot of times you forget what you've done yourself. You're the one who has to come back and read your own work, right?
Yeah.
Not just someone else. But Nick Hunter, you have an artist, and it's like there's the right way and the wrong way to do it, right? So it's
right.
Everyone
but
has
the whole goal of that is efficiency. To put out a consistent product. Repeatability, quality, and so all those goals are the same goals you have with DevOps. So if you're pushing a feature out, try and do it the same way. If you miss a step, make sure you don't miss a step. You can do that by having a good checklist. You can do that by having automation. You can do it by writing your batch files. So all these things that support consistency are ultimately good for deployment.
Yeah, I totally agree. Basically, is this the one right here? Which one is this? No, that's the Nick one right there. So it's an abomination. Yeah, that was always what Nick would say. It's an abomination. Are these the same, or they're both the same? I need the other one. Yeah, basically they come up with a naming convention, and to do that, we've done that. No, they're not. They're a little bit different. For example, like I don't use spaces ever in a name, right? Because you get into trouble with APIs and DAPI and PHP and
JavaScript.
And JavaScript. And Nick is like, spaces are needed. You don't need it unless you're doing all this magical bullshit, right? So people call me and go, Richard, which is the official recommendation? I said, just pick one you love and just go with it. Just pick something you love, right? I'm not telling you right or wrong. Just pick something. So yes, the naming convention's big. I remember seeing sample files. You were probably involved in it. Remember the sample files that were designed by Soliant they were 4 samples that they paid for. They bought them. Claris was reselling those. Remember those things? It was.
I do, yeah.
What's that?
I do remember those. Yep.
Were you involved with those?
I don't think so. Not that round.
Yeah, what happened is that Claris had paid Soliant to build and this is back FileMaker 6 or 7, Nah, 7. It was 7-ish. But the naming conventions was really regimented, like gnarly anal Nazi level regimentation, right? Like crazy. And so people tried to understand what was going on with that, and I said, yeah, you'd have to contact them to find out about the naming convention.
Yeah, I think Scott Love did those.
Yeah, well, that's fine. It was, but that mean it was like if you had a text, a calculation field that was a text field, it would start off with a C and a T, and then you have underscore, and then you have a name. So the things would auto group themselves, right? Which made sense. I understand that, but it was like very, 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 very insanely regimented, right?
Yep.
And so that if that works, if that's what you need to be useful, that's great. What I don't like is when you get to a solution and you have a layout, and there's 4 scripts called print label, right? 4 different scripts with the same identical name called print label, and you have no idea what the print label does and which one you might be needing because they're all named the same. And FileMaker knows they're different, but to us humans, they're the same name, right? You've seen that, Chris? Yeah. So,
Yep.
Yeah, Heidi and poor Chris are bored as hell right now. So question
No, I was thinking about like with the recent ransomwares and stuff. I mean, another rule would be a Richard rule. I don't know if you have this one, but you don't connect to a client on a public Wi-Fi. If you're going to go to Starbucks, use your Wi-Fi. Be safe.
Yeah, that we haven't talked about that too much.
Yeah.
Jacob, go ahead. Go and talk about this briefly if you want.
I didn't have anything else to say.
I just said, or use a VPN.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Jacob Taylor is one of our. Jacob Taylor, are you there? Let's see if he can unmute himself on Discord. Jacob Taylor. He might be on a call. But Jacob Taylor no, he's not there. Okay, so that's fine.
So that's part of our SecOps, right?
Yeah.
You don't do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we've been to DEF CON and it's pretty darn scary.
Okay, so let's talk about where you're going to go, and I'm going to try to sneak off to go to this. Yeah. So this is called DEF CON, DEF. Let me see if I can bring this up. Is it defcon.com or something like that?
.org.
The first time we went, you turn off your laptops, power down your personal phone. You don't want any of that on. And I went to sleep the first night I was there after listening to all these hacking sessions, and I had nightmares that people were getting into my laptop, into my bank accounts, into my, all my money and personal stuff. And I woke up and I couldn't know that wasn't true. I couldn't, because that's what people there know how to do. And, most people there is a white hat, I guess it's called, kind of learning how to do it for the good of humanity. But there are people there that are not, right?
Yeah. So it's one of those events that that when you come to the event, you don't bring your regular phone. You bring a burner phone that's not registered to you.
Yeah.
In fact, I'd be more inclined not even to have a smartphone. I don't even know if you can even buy an old phone, but that's all you'd want.
We have a bunch of old phones. That's part of our So our travel ops has a separate customizable list for DEF CON, because you have a wiped laptop that we only use at DEF CON, and burner phones with specific apps that we use with different emails. And it's similar. When I went to Russia, I did the same thing.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
You went to Russia? Why'd you go to Russia? FileMaker?
We can't talk about that.
Okay. Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. But I mean, getting back to the Wi-Fi thing, if you're like most people, if you ever go on site and you connect to a customer's Wi-Fi and then you store that so you don't have to get the Wi-Fi password every time, that's memorized by your laptop. And then if you go to Starbucks, your laptop will broadcast every SSID it's memorized and said, here are all the SSIDs that I know. Are any of those here? And so it'll ping them out there, and then the Starbucks Wi-Fi will say, well, yes, Starbucks is here. But all those other ones got broadcast. And if anybody else stands up a Wi-Fi hotspot, they will get broadcast to them too and say, oh, they work for Boeing. How interesting. And so the next time you go into Starbucks, they might have a Wi-Fi access point that's named Boeing. And then your thing is going to say, oh, Boeing's here. And it will send your credentials to that Wi-Fi access point and try and log in. And they can capture that. And all they have to do is go drive up to Boeing and, mimic your credentials on their laptop, and they can masquerade as you. So it's a huge security risk if you are not using a VPN in public Wi-Fi. and you typically connect to client networks.
All right, so I have a question. This is a buzz question for the folks there. Would you like to have an expanded conversation with Jacob Taylor about this specific topic? The Wi-Fi, I've seen it here, heard this a lot. It's nothing I focused on. Would you like to have it's not FileMaker, but it's about, I got people buzzing in. Would you like to have a detailed breakdown on how to protect yourself and suggestions on that? So Oregon Dean's buzz, Ken, TK, people are buzzing in. I think it's really useful.
And and this is one of those things, like you tell your kids or whatever, and they think you're just being paranoid, right, about this, and we're not. They are out to get us.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Watch out for Tim Newdecker. If you go to a
watch out
conference
for
with him.
yes. Tim Newdecker is a menace.
Oh, he is. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll have to, in a good way, I assume.
Yes.
If you go to a conference with him, he'll stand up a pineapple and you'll log into it and thinking you've logged into the Wi-Fi and you've logged into Tim.
Yes. No, we love Tim. Tim's a good friend. We're not.
Okay.
We're just saying he knows a lot about this subject too. So.
Okay, good. Yeah. Well, Jacob Taylor does, so we can bring Jacob back on this and have a breakdown on that. So that would be good. It would be, once again, an off topic for us. So we will schedule that specifically. And then if the Moyers want to come back and yell at us about it, that's totally great as well. So we're kind of coming to the end here. We're at the top of our hour. Do we have any other final questions on, it's kind of an interesting thing, but a lot of this is about, doing live development and not live development. And Chris is going to have another presentation he's going to give on that. At some point, we will try to hijack that conversation one way or the other and bring it back to you here. That would be good. So that looks like about it. Well, I want to thank Chris Moyer, Heidi Porter from the Moyer Group. They are FileMaker developers, ACE experts. What is your website if I want to go to your website? What is your website?
MoyerGroup.com.
MoyerGroup.com. So there we go. That's them. Wow, look at this. Wow.
26 years.
26 years. That's awesome.
Congratulations.
Yes. Oh, good. Yep. So they're going to be doing all sorts of stuff. So and then you go to Russia, but we don't know why. So we should be slightly concerned about that. So, all right, cool, awesome. That's a good point. Yeah. It was funny because the helicopter that I ended up flying quite a bit was made in the United States, and then first owners were in Russians. It had a Russian registration and everything, and it came back here to the United States. So it's kind of in my paperwork for the helicopter is a bunch of Russian stuff, which is kind of weird. So kind of wild. Yeah. So anyway, the Russian helicopter. So anyway, yes. Pretty good, Greg. Kyle says, congrats, 26 years, still useful information. Yeah, awesome. Cool. So we'll come back and have a conversation on security. We want to thank the Moyers. They'll be back next week. Next week, if this was kind of tame today, next week is going to be gnarly, because next week is going to be a head-to-head kind of comparison with FileMaker versus other products in market. And I was trying to get information if Claris has posted the broadcast on their website. We submit to them to post. I'm not sure they would actually post that. Like, hey, would you like to see us compared to other people, right? Because they don't know how it'll turn out, right? They think they know how it'll turn out, but they don't really know how it'll turn out. So I could see them like, we're not going to recommend that.
Yeah, so that's why we behaved today, so that we could still be on next week.
Be on next week. That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, everyone, have a good weekend. I appreciate it. Thank you, Moyers and Heidi Porter. Welcome. Thanks, everyone.
So long. Have a good weekend.
And the guys just stepped up the whole way. Calm, cool, collected. The quarterback, great read, good patience. More importantly, great job up front protecting this quarterback to give you a chance. And that's all you can ask for.
Trying to rally down 10. 9:25 to go here in the fourth. Short motion by Amendola from the left. Brady takes the shotgun snap. Stands in, throws it left for Amendola. Reaches up and snacks a high throw and lands inside the 10. Rolling to the 9. Ball slightly behind him, but Danny makes the grab.